this collaboration, they're not only empowering Black people, but they're also supporting Black causes in the community. With just a few items in a few moments, you can turn a sweatshirt like this into a shopping bag like this. If you're anything like me, you started off quarantine with a few seeds. Now you have a forest in your bedroom. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, toilet paper was a hot commodity. Now a new shortage has customers pinching pennies. When demand outweighed supply, they buried this vault and put a bigger one in the back of the chapel. Now this former burial vault and chapel are also abandoned, but it's not because of cemetery expansion.
No justice, no peace, no justice.
We're a local now. This is happening here, and we have got to do something to change this.
As protests and racial unrest continue across the country, this one hits close to home.
And I let them live their lives. I was not allowed to live my life.
Joya Stuckman lived in her apartment on 1st Street for 3 years. She says during that time, she was continuously reminded she was not welcome.
The N-word was just thrown around, or just racial comments were made anytime I came outside or had company.
Some racial comments so harsh, she couldn't repeat them.
I don't want to say it.
Say it. They say it.
When Joya finally decided to move, she says neighbors left her with one final reminder that she didn't belong.
This is on the other side of the truck. That's lovely. There was graffiti on the side of the truck, specifically saying, "Go home," with swastikas.
When the police arrived, they informed her the tires were slashed and there was more vandalism on the other sides of the moving truck. Perpetrators writing white supremacy and telling Joya to go home.
Which that's what I was doing. Let's just move. And I wasn't even allowed to do that. I hate that it took so long for me to finally find my voice, but I'm glad that this day is here.
Joya says now she's using her voice to end racism, and she's calling out the police, who she say mishandled the situation in the process. She says now police are investigating the act with seriousness, but she didn't feel that was always the case. After waiting almost an hour for them to arrive, she says officers downplayed the harshness of the situation.
But unfortunately, the young man tried to convince me that a swastika sign was a sign of peace. If we just negate the signs, look at the words. Those weren't written backwards.
As community members rally around Joya, they say this is about looking at their past and changing the future of Rome.
They chased her out like this is Jim Crow 1950. It is 2020, and we're not having it.
We want the same privilege that other people have. We want to be able to walk down the street without getting the cops called on us, drive down the street without getting gunned down.
And continuing to fight.
It's just not right, and we're not going to stand back anymore. It's been 400 years and we're done.
Until Rome feels like home for everyone. Musa Irikos is a barber. He says he's a beginner, but his friends say he's pretty good. His passion for cutting hair started in high school.
In high school, they used to call me a fade master.
The Fade Master, a nickname whose origin extends outside these four walls across the Atlantic Ocean and can be traced back to this photo.
This was me and my brother in Tanzania.
Musa says this is around the last time he saw his brother before he and his family fled Burundi.
In our country, there was no peace.
His brother was left behind because when they were recruited to come to the States, he was out for work as a barber.
He used to give me a fade. That's what I like to do on people. Like, that's my favorite haircut too.
Musa says they came to the States for a better life, a life his mom hoped included him being a doctor or a preacher.
She wanted to work for God.
But Musa wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps, not as a pastor, but in his own personal sanctuary. And not as a doctor, but he says something like a doctor.
He like performing a surgery.
He says with a steady hand and a focused eye, he's grown to be just like his older brother, always carrying his flag to remind him of home. And even though he's not a pastor or a doctor, he says his mom is proud her sons are barbers. In Syracuse, Monica Manney, Spectrum News.
But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
Saturday, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris became not just the first woman, but the first Black woman and the first of South Asian descent to be elected as Vice President of the United States.
And I gotta tell you, sometimes there aren't enough words to explain how powerful this moment is for me.
That's me. You know, when I think about that, that's me, a woman, a Black woman. And when I think about the fact of a Black woman in the White House.
Community leaders say the historic moment is more than the shattering of a bulletproof glass ceiling. It marks one more step on the road Black Americans travel toward justice and representation.
That's what this moment feels like to me. It's almost an awakening for people to see me, right? And when I'm saying me, I'm talking about the universal me.
A journey that has now reached the insides of the White House for Black women, when less than 60 years ago, Black Americans fought for the right to even cast a ballot.
There was a lot of sacrifices that were made. There was a lot of challenges that were overcome.
We stand on their shoulders. And so when we think about the power of this moment, we think about the power of voting and using your voice. We think about the power of never turning back. We think about the power of fortitude.
And they think of the ancestors who dedicated their lives to the work, even if they were unable to see their dreams realized.
My mother. I would love for her to have been here to see this. And unfortunately, she actually died right before President Obama was elected into office.
I wish my mother and my grandmothers had an opportunity to see this, you know, for all that they have sowed into us. I just wish they would have been here to see the fruits of all of that sowing.
While their ancestors were unable to see the end of the road, they say they knew its course.
Probably would have first said, "Ma, can you believe?" And she would have said, "Yes. Yes."
A history filled with darkness and perseverance, a present full of hope, and a future yet realized.
We're going to be all right.
Continuing the course till victory is won.
I cut up the strawberries, then I put them in the blender and mix.
Like many kids, Morgan Scott likes to make sweet snacks in the kitchen with her mom. But unlike many 6-year-olds, Morgan is the CEO of her own sweets company, Very Berry Munch. Morgan's mom is a nurse and says when she saw the amount of sugar in her kids' snacks, she wanted to bake a better option.
Obesity is very prevalent in our community, and that's something that I want to change for myself, but also stop that for my children. So that's why we make our own things.
While Marie's goal was to create healthy and organic lemonade, fruit roll-ups, and jam for her kids, Morgan's eyes were set on the business side of things, deciding to make a company and bring her products to local pop-up shops.
When she said, "Let's sell them," that's what we did. And here we are. That first pop-up she did, it was like amazing. We sold out within like 30 minutes.
Now the tables have turned, and Morgan's mom is working for her as an employee of Very Berry Munch.
She's my boss. I'm not trying to get into anything with her.
And if you had any question about whether being a 6-year-old CEO is a difficult task, just watch Morgan work. From strawberry inspections to blending and spreading, Marie says her kid CEO specializes in quality control, especially because some things Morgan really does decide on her own.
Anything with strawberries in it, Morgan has to try it to make sure that it's up to her standards because I'm allergic, so I can't try it.
But when you're on it as a kid CEO, you sometimes have reminders you're still just 6 years old.
I went to sleep on a job before.
Luckily for Morgan, she has an employee, well, her mom, to cover her shifts during nap times and to encourage her during work time.
I love you. You're doing so good.
And if you're interested in being an entrepreneur, no matter how old you are, Morgan says there are 3 special ingredients to succeeding in the business. Work hard,
Be brave, and be nice to other people.
and with those things, you too can be a CEO, just like Morgan. In Syracuse, Monica Manney, Spectrum News.